chicken house in the 1930s. Other than absence of chickens, still looks like chicken house from the 1930s. Pagoda, missing a leg, paint long since flaked off. Glass house, Athena statue, war memorial. I can see all of them from up there, waving their ailments at me like a bunch of querulous old ladies, insisting that their own cracks or ivy asphyxiation or slumping roofs are the most worthy of immediate attention, while I can only blink at them in anguish. Obviously, there was no point mentioning any of these concerns about the place to anyone else up there today, as I've long since learned I'm the only one who frets. The boys would look at me blankly, Hugh would be instantly irritated, and I don't think Rose would have the first idea what I was talking about, let alone the interest to find out. Besides, nothing outside the treehouse was as pressing an issue as what was going on inside it. Was it my imagination? Or were the floorboards beneath the Piper's ample frame beginning to bow? Would it be quicker to call an ambulance or just squash all the casualties in the car and take them to Hereford myself? But in all senses of the phrase, we got away with it. Hugh said a few lovely words about Grandpa, Pete let the bell toll 3 times, and then the Piper played. I think Grandpa would have been touched, and no one died, which was rather a bonus. Supper was not a success. As always, I asked Ian to join us, and as always, he refused, with that standard quiet indignation that makes you think you've just proffered up offence and not an invitation. So there were just the 5 of us. And despite our smartness, a term that could really only be applied accurately to Rose, we seemed as ever quite unable to match the table's expectations of its diners, not numerous enough or grand enough or accustomed enough to ludicrous towering candelabras, Venetian glass and translucent porcelain, to warrant the disturbance of their attic slumber, let alone their use. This snootiness so very misjudged when you consider the near worthlessness of every single item. Any real value long lost in the deep dents in the silver, the chips and superglued seams in everything else. To be fair, Hugh and Rose seemed pretty oblivious to the demands of the tableware, but Billy, acutely aware of its alleged preciousness, approached every sip and morsel as if they were finely triggered explosive devices, while Pete entertained himself by causing me repeated bursts of panic as he, accidentally, nearly knocked over or dropped everything within his reach. "Peter," I hissed in his ear, after a particularly close shave, "will you please behave?" "Oh, leave him be," said Rose, unhelpfully ruffling his hair. "He's probably bored to tears. I know I am," she added loudly, making it clear from the glance she gave her brother that she held him entirely responsible for this. Hugh was busy carving the goose, but it wasn't focus on his task that made him ignore her. "In the old days," she went on, in a cosy storytelling voice designed to draw both boys to listen, "before your Grandpa Hugh died, your mum and your dad and I used to have a lot of fun at the ringings, though they were for great-grandpa Hugh then, of course. Usually we'd turn it into a bit of a party, get some friends over in the evening, put some music on outside and dance, or go skinny dipping in the lake, or—" "Oh, so many lovely things," she continued, setting her enormous dangly earrings swinging as she shook her head in nostalgia. Certainly it was never like this. She was right, of course. There'd never have been fewer than 20 around the table then. Grandpa Hugh would have been very disappointed otherwise, and had you glanced down the room, you'd have seen the faces of friends in every state of animation, laughing, talking intently, listening intently, interrupting, grimacing, or exclaiming at some outrage or absurdity. While the room, so cavernous and unimpressed tonight, would settle back in pleasure and satisfaction. As did Grandpa Hugh himself, liking nothing more than being surrounded by the young, sometimes as participant, but mainly as benign and proprietary observer. It was only when the space could no longer contain us, when we were no longer willing to be contained, that the nature of our enjoyment diverged from his, and he'd retired to the snug peaceably with a whiskey in his hand, and Delilah, her head on her paws at his feet. For the first ringing after he died, 7 years ago now, we made the same preparations, as always. Same guests, same lugging boxes from the attic, same wrestling with goose. But even as I saw no reason why the outcome, a fantastic evening, shouldn't be the same as it always had been, some part of me suspected that it wouldn't.